What's up, y'all? My name is Trochay, aka the Fairy Blurred Mother, and I am here with my very first book review. This is a channel I've wanted to start for a while, and I just finished a book that made me feel like I could not wait any longer. And you probably have heard of it. I'm late to the party. It's Legendborn. I got my copy from the library because I work at the library, and my budget does not allow me to buy every book that I want to read, especially if I don't know if I'm gonna like it or not. Hopefully, she's not glaring on you too hard. But Legendborn by Tracy Dion is what we're discussing today. There will be spoilers in this review, and I will let you know before I begin the spoilers. Um, but with that being said, let's get started. So, Legendborn. It's a book about a girl, a teenage girl, who goes off to early college to run away from her grief after losing her mother. She gets to this college and strange things just start happening, right? She runs into this kid who has these strange abilities, who is part of this strange group that fight demons on campus. All of this is on the jacket. This is not where the spoilers are. Um, I actually feel like the jacket gives a lot of the story away. Although there's so much in this story that you can't really get all of it in one go, like in one sound bite, but it does give a lot of the story away. So anyway, she goes off, Brianna Matthews, she goes off to early college and runs into these kids. Everything gets weird, right? So I'll start with my initial thoughts of the book. So initially, my initial thoughts on this book, first thing, mom dies in the first couple of pages of the book. Mom dies in a car accident. My initial thought, this is super Disney. I'm not really a fan. I don't like the killing off of parents that Disney has a habit of doing. So I was like, but I was told that it was worth a read, so I kept reading. So mom dies, right? After she and her daughter have had a knockdown drag out argument, and baby girl has decided that she's not talking to mom all day today, and they'll talk about it later when she gets home. Mom never makes it home. So that's the first thing. Disney killing off parents, not a fan. Then she leaves for early college. And I'm like, your mom just died. Would you really still go to early college if your mom just died? But Tracy Dion does a really good job of tying the leaving to running away from. Oh, there's a gnat. Anyway, she does a good job of tying the running away from home to get away from the grief is the reason why she goes off to early college still. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. Your mom's memories in your house, you don't want to be there. You're a teenage girl. Makes perfect sense. So on her first day on campus, right? First day on campus, she goes to this party. She's not supposed to be off campus, but she goes to this party. And at this party, she meets this kid. Weird kid, kind of like interacting kind of strange with her or whatever. And he grabs her. Initial thoughts, why is this little boy touching her? Because that's a weird way to start a relationship with somebody. Or not even a relationship, just like to introduce yourself to them. So that kind of put me off already, having this kid like grab her out of nowhere. But when I first read it, I was like, oh, is he a vampire? Because it was giving really, really, really big vampy vibes. And I was like, a vampire would be cool. But there are no vampires in this story. So anyway, but I thought he was because it was like Twilighty descriptions. You know what I mean? So that was cool. I'm going to get some coffee because I'm nervous. It's my first time doing this. Right? And I have a really bad memory, so I'm going to grab my little notebook because I would use my laptop, but like, I like to write things down. She's old school, right? I'm an older chicken. You know what I mean? Ain't no spring chicken anymore. So like the memory's not all the way there all the time, but that's fine. Okay. So boom. That's like initial thoughts on the book. just within the first chapter, these are my thoughts. Like, what's going on? Who are these people? What's happening? Just an outline of the story, right? This is a retelling of the Arthurian legends. So, King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. I didn't know a lot about this legend. I did know about the Excalibur in the stone, the sword in the stone. I knew about that, but I didn't know too much more about it. But you don't really have to read this book, which is great because I would have been lost, right? Wouldn't have known heads from tails. But okay, so it's a retelling of sorts, but instead of it being like King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, it's the descendants of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, and they make up this group called the Legendborns. And instead of like fighting wars and things, they fight demons that cross over into the human realm. So Bree finds herself intertwined with this group, the Legendborns, because now she's having doubts about the circumstances of her mother's death, right? Like it was said that she died in a car accident, and she sees something that makes her think that maybe her mother's death was not a car accident because the thing that she sees reminds her of something that she saw the night her mom died. So she gets in league with this group. And one of my favorite things about Brie, I have to say hands down, one of my first impressions of her that I absolutely loved was that she drove her story. This book is heavily character driven. Super character driven. Things don't happen to Brie, right? Like she's not like tripping into things. Things aren't happening to her. She is finding her way to things, right? Like she's making things happen for herself to push her own story and her own narrative and find the answers that she wants. It's not a woe is me, damsel in distress kind of story. I absolutely love those. On the other hand, it does kind of give off like the strong black woman kind of trope, but in a good way. It's not like, oh, I'm angry at the world type of thing. Although she is a little angry at the world, but she's a teenager. A teenager is not angry at the world. You know what I mean? But yeah, still, I love the fact that this story is so character driven. Tracy Dion did a great job in that way. That's the rundown of the story. That's some of my initial thoughts of the story. Let's get into this cast. This cast is enormous. It is so big, and there are very few flat characters. Like, I think maybe 3 or 4 didn't show personality, but other than that, they are all like active in the story and like play parts in the story. Off the rip, you have Brie Matthews, who is this teenage girl. We already met her. Then we meet Alice, who is Brie's best friend. They both go off to early college together. She's an Asian girl that Brie's been friends with forever. It's been her thing to want to go to early college forever. So they go together. Then Brie meets Nick. Nick is this heartthrob of a boy that's supposed to be like Brie's mentor, right? He is, to me, he gives off big, big, big golden retriever energy. Like he is a golden retriever boy. He is like precious, right? And then there, on the other hand, there's Selwyn, the weird kid that grabs her at the party. Selwyn is not precious, right? He is he's an interesting character. He's, the broody guy or whatever. Kind of dark matter, dark energy type of thing going on. We like Selwyn, but we don't know where to put Selwyn, right? So after that, then you get into this huge cast. You have I'm gonna read them off to you because it's a lot of them. It's a lot of them. So I'm not gonna read everybody. I'm not gonna describe everybody, but I'll give you quite a few of them, right? So you have Tor and Evan and William and Sarah and Russ and Vaughn and Greer and Whitty and Dusty and Charlotte and Fitz and Felicity and Sydney and Lewis and Craig and Pete. I was not gonna read that way, but once I started it, it kind of came off like a song, and I was like, I love this, so I had to keep it up. Anyway, you have all these people. All of these people are either a descendant of someone from the Round Table, or they are the page or squire to somebody who is a descendant of someone from the Round Table, right? Except Charlotte. Charlotte is a friend that Bree went to school with that also goes to this college, right? um, yeah. So that's the cast. It's huge. This book is so diverse in a, I wouldn't say it's not diverse racially, because she's in one of the Carolinas, right? And she's in the boondocks, like in the sticks. So of course it's mostly a white cast. And that makes sense because this group of Legendborns have been passed down from generations to generations and generations and generations. And one of Bree's things that she notices is she couldn't have known where she fell in that line if she was part of that group, if she wanted to, because of the history of African Americans or Black Americans in this country, and the slave trade and whatnot. So it's a very white cast, but it's very diverse in the way that there are maybe 3 heteronormative males in this book, and we don't know Bree's full sexuality. We know she likes boys, but we don't know if she likes girls. So of this huge cast, we can say for sure that there are at least 2. One is questionable, but at least 2 cishet men, right? Out of this cast of like 14, where are you coming from? What is this? What is this bug? What are you? Never seen you like all day. It must be the lights. Maybe the lights. I don't know. Anyway, so it's very diverse in that way. We have Greer, who is non-binary. We have a couple of bisexual characters. We have a gay, lesbian couple. Super, super representative of like different sexualities. Love that. Love that, right? Like it makes sense. Because what is it? 1 in every 4 people are of the LGBTQIA population, right? QIA plus population. So did like that. Right. So let's talk themes, right? So some of the big themes in this one, generational trauma, grief, self-discovery, classism. There are the themes of bigotry and racism, which is gonna happen in a realistic fiction book that contains mostly white people and 1 Black girl. It's gonna happen. You can't but it's not like in your face, and I did love that. It's not like, well, I won't say it's not in your face, but it's not like the main thing of the story. It doesn't take the stage away from the main plot and themes of the story. It does get in your face, but for the times that it gets in your face, and then it's done, right? Love that, because I don't read Black struggle. I wish I had known that they were in that was in there. So I would have been a little more mentally prepared, but it's not like too off-putting, so that was great. So for me to get into my likes and dislikes of this, I have to get into the spoilers. So this is your official warning that the spoilers are coming. Okay? Okay. So let's start with likes, right? I've already said how I like that the cast was diverse and how I like that Brie makes her own story. Already said those things. Love those parts. It looks like my computer had stopped recording my audio, and that's an issue, but hopefully it didn't, and this sounds good to y'all. Anyway, so Yeah, like those parts. But to get like further into the story, right? I love the romance in this book. Was it necessary? No, no, it wasn't. Wasn't necessary to the plot at all. But I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was so well done. Like, have you ever like read a romance scene that made you like, ooh, like made your heart speed up a little bit? There are some of those in this book that like make your hair stand up. And for it to be a YA book, it's super clean, but and I'm grown, right? I'm real grown. So for it to go that way for me, I was like, oh my father, oh my lord. That was one of my favorite things. Because I love romance. It's like what are we without it? You know what I mean? We're I it's very important. It's very important to me. Let's talk about some of my favorite quotes. So my one of my favorite quotes in the whole novel was, "Your expectations belong to you." Nick, the golden retriever boy, says this to someone in this novel, and I was like, "Yes, yes, I'm taking it. Yes, that belongs to me. I will be using it." Your expectations belong to you, because they absolutely do. It is not my job to live up to them. I love that. And then there's a really big um mental health message in there too, because Bree starts to attend therapy, but they also show how she and her father have been like trying to deal with the grief because he's picked up like grief books. And one of the things that he says to her when she gets overwhelmed is, "Where do we begin?" And her answer is, "At the beginning." And to me, it's profound, right? Because, like, it's so easy to get overwhelmed. It is so easy to get overwhelmed and just forget where to begin. And it really is just at the beginning. You begin at the beginning. I think that's great. So yeah, those are two of my favorite quotes. Okay, some more likes. So I love that I did not have to know the Arthurian legends to follow this book. I also love that it has some black girl magic in it, and they call it root in the book, right? It's magic of Bree's ancestors, and I love that because she's surrounded by magical people, right? She's surrounded by people with these different abilities and these different histories and all of this power. And Tracy found a way to make her powerful in her own right. And I absolutely loved and appreciated it, because I was like, it would really suck to be the odd man out where you're being bullied and you don't belong, and to be the least extraordinary person there. What's like, who wants to do that? Nobody wants to read that story. No, nobody wants to be that person. So I do love that Tracy included that. Um, the plot twists. Oh my god, the plot twist in this book. Like, I didn't expect so much, so much. I didn't expect so much in this book, and the way that she did it was like chef's freaking kiss, right? Like, expertly done. Um, on top of the plot twist, I loved her transition into the racism and bigotry themes and plot lines, because they weren't like, here, I'm just throwing this in here. They were pretty integral into the story, and it made a difference. Like, it fed the plot line, and it wasn't just like, oh, this is something that happens in the South. You know, like, it wasn't just like, oh yeah, she's on the black girl, so there has to be some racism. It wasn't that. And I've read plenty of books where that's a thing. I've actually not finished a couple of books where that's a thing. It's just like, oh, she's the only black girl. So, we're going to throw this in here, right? So I appreciated the transition and the fact that since it was in the book, it played a part in the story. I did appreciate that. I already talked about the cast of characters. Oh, yes. So there's a hint in this story at a possible love triangle, but not a love triangle in the way that one would think. At least I don't think, because if it goes with Bree as the object of affection, I don't, I don't like that because like like I said, when she met Selwyn, he was weird, he was rude, he was mean. And then the rest of the book, he hates her because he thinks that she's one of the demons that they fight, and that she's just taken on a human form, and she's fully like humanized herself as a chief demon. So he threatens her life, right? He is really ugly to her, like really, really, really ugly to her. But by the end of it, that relationship switches. And there's like a hint of possible care or interest, but I would really hope that it's a care more like we're in this together, I got your back, than like relationshipy, like shipping vibes. Because no, for her to do that, I would think that the Tracy Dion would have needed to put in more time and like blatant scenes of them like making up and apologizing to each other. Well, not well, really more so than Bree, but there's so many people that ship them, and I'm just like, how? He was abusive. He was like, it was if it were relationshipy, it was abusive. Um, and she falls in love with Nick. Nick falls in love with her, but they play at this possible love triangle. But the twist is, Selwyn used to be in love with Nick. So, if the possible love triangle is like Bree and Nick and Selwyn and Nick, or Bree and Nick and Selwyn and Nick, and like Nick might like Selwyn back because we don't actually know if he's straight or not, that type of thing, okay, we'll see in book 2. But if it's like Selwyn falling in love with Bree, I'm not really here for it. Unless in book 2 she goes more into like their transition into frienddom first, because from threatening my life to being in love with me, it's giving toxic. We don't like it. But other than that, so now let me get into the parts that I was not a fan of. Number one thing that I did not like was the timing. This book is so good. It's so good, right? But it would benefit from more time. Like, I would have happily read like another chapter or two to get the scenes into the book that could have built a love triangle. Like, to get some blatant scenes in there when Selwyn's like, pour my heart out to you, even though he's not that kind of character. He's not. He's the dark broody character, right? But he does have some vulnerable scenes in this book, but not vulnerable enough to where Bree's like, you know what? Throw caution to the wind. I trust you with my life now. No, not quite. And so, like, I feel like some of that might have been cold and left on the editing floor if she wrote it at all. But it really could have benefited from a little more timing. I don't like the origin of Bree's magic. I'm just gonna say that. So Bree's magic, her black girl magic, comes from generations and generations of the women in her family. But it's rooted in trauma, because there's a full on like grape scene of one of her great 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 grandmothers, and she's granted this magic, this blood magic, to save herself from her master who's trying to harm her once he finds out that she's pregnant. Um, and that, oof, it was heavy. It was heavy. I didn't like it. I didn't like that her magic stemmed from that. I love the fact that she had her own magic, but I didn't like that it stemmed from that. I get the idea that it's like, oh, well, from ashes we rise type of thing, right? It's like I was at the lowest of low. You did everything you could to me, and I still like came out on top. It brought me to where my descendants are now. Blase, blase, blase. Cool, cool. I did not like that. I didn't need that scene. I did not need a flashback all the way to slavery. I don't read black trauma. I don't read it. I've seen enough of it. I don't need it. Which is why I stay away from realistic fictions a lot of the time, especially if the main character is black. But I really wanted to read this book. And I was not ready for that. Like some of it really, really made me really upset. Um anyway, so yeah, there was a couple of my like dislikes about it. There were some parts like overall, this thing here, this baby here, magnificent. It was so good. It's so well done. All the themes work so well together. Like it's a lot. It's a lot in this book. You have an Arthurian retelling of the legend, right? You have root magic. You have blood magic. You have like fantastical creatures and demons and like grief and generational trauma and racism all in one book. Right? It's all in one book. And it sounds like too much. But she did it so well. She did it so well, and I really wish I had done this review right after I read it because I was hype. Right? I've read 4 books since I finished this one already, so like it's not as fresh anymore. I wrote the review on my blog, and I just hadn't had a chance to film. But it like what I'm saying right now is not even. It's not even like doing it justice. If I'm being completely honest, especially because like my memory sucks. My memory is awful. I remember there was one part in this book where Bree is surrounded by like all these white people with all these gifts, and she's in the middle of this. Oh, she has to like have to go through these trials to figure out who's gonna squire for the descendants. Nick needs a squire. William, the healer, needs a squire, and one more person needs a squire, and I can't remember who. There are 3 squire positions, and they have to hold these competitions. And in one of the competitions, they have to kill these demons. And these kids have been training for this their entire life, right? Because it's passed down from family to family, so they know what they're in for. She has no idea what she's in for, and when I got to that part, like I literally said, "What you gonna do, black girl?" Because she was in over her head, and it was like, it was wild. It was wild. The way it works out is wild, but like, it's so good. It is so good in the way that like, you just don't expect. You don't expect, even with everything that this jacket gives away. With everything this jacket gives away, there's still so much in this book that you just don't expect. I heard someone say in another review that we leave this book not knowing anything about Brie, and I disagree with that. I disagree wholeheartedly because we learned that she's a teenager. We learned that her mother has passed away. We learned that she is stubborn, right? She is blinders. If something happens, if there's something she wants, she's in it, right? She's loyal. She's strong. She's super smart. She's hurting, right? We learn all of these things about her in the midst of everything that's going on. It's not like we don't get a dissertation on her. We don't get a, well, she's this kind of kid and da 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 da. You learn her through her actions, which I feel like is how you learn anybody. Um, in real life, right? You learn her through her history. We learn that she comes from a history of women who have all passed away before their daughters reach maturity because of the curse that's on their family. Um, we learn about Brie, just not in like a upfront kind of manner. So when I heard someone say that, I was like, it's not necessarily true. But people have their own opinions. Anyhow, the wrap up. Would I suggest this book? Absolutely. Matter of fact, I already have. I have two people reading it right now, so we can talk about it. I would absolutely refer to this book. I loved this book. It is one of my favorite reads since Children of Blood and Bone. And you don't know that I was crazy about that book. This book is one of the first ones in 2022 that made me sit up and read throughout the night, right? I read this book in 2 days. It is, let's see, how many pages long? 490 pages long. I read it in 2 days because it's so good. The romance is great. The storylines are great. The characters are wonderful. The way that it pulls on your emotions, absolutely. Oh my God, like it might feel like too much. I will say that it might feel like too much for somebody, but it is good and it is worth the read. So I gave it 5 wands. If you want to hear like a more concise like review or see like a more concise review, you can go to my website. It'll be down in the description box because I'm not doing this any justice. Honestly, I just don't feel like I am. Oh, can we take a moment to appreciate this cover art? Look at her. She is gorgeous. Okay? She is absolutely beautiful. I love this. I don't like reading with the jackets on, but one, it's a library book and I couldn't take it off. Two, I don't want to. Like if it were mine, I would have taken the jacket off to read it and put it immediately back on just because I want to see it. Even though the book underneath, it's really pretty. It's my cousin bought the book and she took the jacket off and like it's like black underneath and says Legendborn on the spine. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. Everything about this, it's just a beautiful book. It's a beautiful story. I feel like it didn't get as much hype as it should have. Probably because it's realistic fiction and it's set in America and it touches on racism and bigotry and the fact that we do have some generational trauma that like has affected the way that our kids grow up and the way that we grow up and stuff like that. And America doesn't like those types of things. Not on a wide scale. We don't like that in our face. But it should have gotten more. It was good. It was good. It is good. And that's all I can say about it. There's only so much I can say. Right? So, with that being said, I'm going to wrap up because now I'm rambling. And I will see you in the next one.